Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing Vanquish on the GeForce GTX 1060, 6GB for FPS monitoring. I'll be using CAM. If you want to download this software, there's a link down in the description. And if you want to purchase any of the parts featured in this build and support the channel, there are Amazon affiliate links down in the description too. So Vanquish, I'll be doing 1080p, 1440p and 4K. To skip any of those sections of the video, check the description below. I'll be first using a G4560 and then an i5-7400. First for the G4560, I'll be doing 1080p max settings, and you'll see that I'm over 60 frames per second without much of an issue. The game runs very smoothly and is totally playable. Then I switch to the i5-7400 and you'll see that the GPU usage is higher as well as the frame rate. On some very specific places I saw up to 15 FPS more using the i5. This game is weirdly CPU intensive on open areas when there are many enemies shooting at you at once, which is kind of interesting for a 7-year-old game. But this matters if you just want to be over 60 frames per second. With the Pentium you can maintain 60 frames just fine. So the i5 is just to take more advantage of the GPU if you want to go over 80 frames per second, for example. Then at 1440p I was also able to get to 60 frames per second without much of an issue. And then at 4K I just overclocked the GTX 1060. You can see the core and memory clocks down in the description. And I was able to get to 60 frames per second by lowering some of the settings. I'll talk more about the graphical settings and how to tweak the game in a second. But yeah, so far 4K was totally playable. I still recommend 1440p. If you have a 1080p monitor, for example, you can force those higher resolutions to get less aliasing. Since at 1080p, even with Edge 8X anti-aliasing, you can see a lot of jaggies. So that's all up to you. Now I'm going to talk to you about the options menu. So in the options menu, the first things that you should lower in order to get better performance if you're suffering from performance issues: SSAO quality, which is screen space ambient occlusion. This wasn't present on the console versions back then. If you turn that off, it's usually a good FPS boost. I'm mentioning this one first since it was the one that was the most subtle implementation. You won't notice much of a difference with it on or off. There is a difference, but it's very subtle. Since you move very quickly in this game, you will rarely notice those changes in graphical quality. At least that's my opinion. Then the other preset that you might want to lower is shadows. If you lower them from high to medium, you get a very noticeable FPS boost, but the shadows look quite worse. Shadows in this game don't look quite good, but that was to be expected. It's a very old game already. I think it's 7 years old. But on consoles they were filtered. Here they seem to be razor sharp for some reason. They didn't apply any of the filters to them, so they look quite blocky, but they still do the job correctly. And one weird thing that I noticed, the LOD option on or off. Some people might think that LOD, level of detail, if you turn it on, means better quality. It seems to be the other way around, since when you choose in the graphics quality options you have low, medium or high, and it will configure the game for you. If you select high, it'll keep everything cranked up, but LOD will be kept on off. But if I move it to low, it will move everything to the lowest preset, but LOD will be kept on, which makes me suspect that LOD enabled means that there's a lower draw distance for some reason, and I noticed this with LOD on versus off. So I'm not sure why they implemented that way, but that seems to be how it works according to the graphics quality presets, since as I said, low keeps it on and high keeps LOD off, which is weird. Then on the anti-aliasing options, you have Edge 2X, Edge 4X, Edge 8X, FXAA or off. These options don't seem to be anything like MSAA as you would expect. They look quite blurry even at 8X for some reason, so I recommend using an injector tool such as NVIDIA Inspector in order to inject a different anti-aliasing technique, or just try a higher resolution like 1440p. With 1440p compared to 1080p Edge 8X, it's a huge difference. The blurry edges at 1440p on a 1080p monitor are gone, so I recommend doing that instead if you have a good enough graphics card. And the HDR option is not HDR from the monitors that you see on high-end monitors that rarely exist. It's not the new option on high dynamic range. This is the high dynamic range of the old games. It's like HDR lighting, In this game it seems to control the bloom implementation, just like on Bayonetta. So HDR in this options menu appears to be the bloom option or something related to lighting. It doesn't have anything to do with HDR on televisions or monitors, so keep that in mind. That's a much different technique than what we have here. It runs quite good, but I saw on the G4560 that 60 frames per second was possible. But if you want to take advantage of the extra horsepower of your GPU, I don't know, you maybe want to go over 80 frames per second all the time, you might want to consider an i5 or a Ryzen 5 chip. I mostly noticed this on the RX 470, RX 480, the GTX 1060. Anything over a GTX 1050 Ti was worth getting a better CPU. But again, if you want 60 frames per second, a G4560 is more than enough for what I could see. But yeah guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you keep enjoying the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
Enemy reinforcements are closing in on your position.
Are there any other ways to get up top?
It looks like you're just going to have to fight through this one. The gate's open now.
Good. Let's go. Fire!
Warmer reception than I was hoping for. Still, administering empty.
Sam, I'm picking up some sort of interference on the scanners. Looks temporal.
You think they're zapping something in?
Enemy reinforcements are closing in on your position.
Are there any other ways to get up top?
It looks like you're just going to have to fight through this one. The gate's open now.
Good. Let's go. Engage target.
more reception than I was hoping for. Have some juice. Hold still. Administering epi.
Sam, I'm picking up some sort of interference on the scanners. Looks temporal.
You think they're zapping something in?
Enemy reinforcements are closing in on your position.
Are there any other ways to get up top?
It looks like you're just going to have to fight through this one. The gate's open now.
Good. Let's go.
Get out of the way! All clear.